time. So
I love teaching others because when I first got into the healthcare field, people overlooked me. I was really a ninth grade dropout who had no education, but I was determined to make something of myself for my baby. So Motor City matched the funds I put into my business. They awarded me $20,000. So now I'm able to focus solely on first step healthcare training and give it everything it needs. All because I live in Detroit.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in a home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Okay, we're on the air.
We are on the air. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. I'm Saeed Khan, and yet again, a very momentous week as we're moving into the Thanksgiving festivities that are going to be next week as well. We've got most of our usual lineup today, which is excellent. We have 2 out of the 3 attorneys, Joel Sklar and Bill Seikaly, are here. Steve Fishman is on the road, as Kerouac would say, but somehow I don't see Kerouac being Steve's spirit animal on this one.
I think you got it wrong, Saeed. I think he's on the run. Oh, no.
We have president of BME Consulting and former director of Wayne County Public Services Department, Beverly Watts, labor and community activist Barb Ingalls, veteran journalist Nancy Derringer, and of course, in his Barca Lounger today, co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel.
That's
so
my lazy boy here from Gardner White.
Okay, not a full endorsement of the show, but if Gardner White wants to give us some lazy boys for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1 for fish, we won't.
Are
refuse.
we going to explain why he's in his lazy boy and not in his?
You can do that.
That would be a HIPAA violation if I raised it, Nancy.
Okay.
I get permission. Yes, I slipped on some stairs and tore my quadricep tendon. And so I have a full leg brace on, and I have surgery on Monday. So I'll have to wear a full leg brace for at least 2 months. So this will be my position on the show for at least 2 months.
Oh, man. Well, I hope you have a speedy recovery and a full recovery on that. And it could always be worse, Allan. You could be broadcasting next week prone. So this is certainly a leg up. Well, I think probably we should go with the relatively breaking news first, and that is Trump nominee for Attorney General Matt Gaetz has taken himself out of the running, or as is being reporting, has withdrawn.
He's pulled out? Are you telling me he's pulled out?
Yes, right. On his own?
Those would not be incorrect. And we see the first head smack of the day goes to Bill Seikaly on that. And we find that within 24 hours, fear not, because another nominee has been placed, and that is Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi.
Former.
An acolyte. A former, to say I'm correct. Corrected. Bondi is still a current acolyte of President-elect Trump, and this perhaps in a way to avert what seemed to be a very contentious Senate Judiciary hearing that would be no doubt there for Matt Gaetz. But he kind of screwed himself over, didn't he? He kind of resigned from Congress in order to escape the ethics report, and now he has no job. But apparently Governor DeSantis is thinking about appointing him for the vacancy in the Senate seat from Florida. So yeah, Nancy.
Just don't ever underestimate the chutzpah of these people to do the most disgusting thing ever. And it wouldn't surprise me if Matt Gaetz ended up in the U.S. Senate or in another position that doesn't require Senate approval. Maybe they'll make him, they'll put him in charge of sex education or something. I mean, this week has been, I mean, I think every week, I think it can't get any worse. And then it does. I mean, we had and here's the other thing that drives me crazy. And I'm sorry, I hate to lower the tone in the first, 15 minutes.
Get it over with,
but let's just get it over with.
I mean, right into it.
These are the people who for generations now have been telling us that they believe in family values, and they're not about our liberal sexuality, all of our, that we get divorced and we have sex outside of marriage and all this stuff. And Matt Gaetz is a guy who apparently has, porked all these women at parties in front of other people, with lines of white powder laid out on the kitchen counters in the kitchen of these houses.
Oh, Nancy, he's a changed man.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
I think Nancy. I think there was also mirrors on the ceiling and pink champagne on ice.
Yeah, right. I know.
White
it was
plush
probably
carpet.
really, really cheap stuff. And then the other guy, Pete Hegseth, is the one who supposedly raped a woman while she was completely nearly blind drunk, and she remembers his dog tags waving in her face, before he then did his own disgusting ending.
I thought you were about to say she remembered something else.
Yeah. But I mean, this is like, so it's like adjudicated rapist nominates rapist to run to run the Department of Defense, and near rapist, I mean, we can call him a sex trafficker, I suppose, or a whoremonger or whatever, to be the Attorney General. And so this is the Trump administration. It's like, what fresh hell will tomorrow bring?
But at least the single transgender member of Congress will not be able to use the women's bathroom.
Right.
And we have a video about that, I believe, Barb.
All right, let me.
Serving that up.
Yep.
We've all heard the official story of the 2024 election. According to the pundits, the Democrats were obsessed with woke they-them politics that didn't connect with voters, while Republicans were talking about real issues that affect people day to day. So now Republicans are in charge of both houses of Congress. So let's hear about the economy.
On Capitol Hill, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson took aim at Democrat Sarah McBride, the first trans member of Congress. 8 barred transgender people from using the Capitol complex bathrooms that do not align with the sex assigned at birth.
Okay, forget about the economy. I guess the national mandate was making it harder for this one woman to poop at work.
She should go in Mike Johnson's office and find like a wastebasket or something and use that. That would
January
be
6th style.
or Nancy Mace's office. Yeah.
Or a desk.
Or a desk.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like the January 6ers. So
Yes.
anyway.
Joel,
I've
I've got
what we have to look forward to in the next 4 years. But I say Gaetz, I think he's going to be appointed to the Senate. That would be my guess for sure.
Here's why I disagree with that.
Okay.
The House Ethics Panel report is going to be turned over to the Senate. He faces the same problem of being investigated for that issue if he's in the Senate.
I pray you're right. I hope so, because Bill, I would hate to see him in the Senate.
Well, I hate to see him in the Justice Department. That's where I think he'll end up.
I hate to see his face on my screen of my computer.
Yeah, he's very punchable.
Wow,
I'd
Barb,
like to see him behind bars, but that's just my view.
There you go.
Barb, you just had a cat jump to the very top of your refrigerator back there. That's
Yeah,
agility.
It's a sweet move.
Yeah. Hey,
Knock
Joel.
something over before the show is over.
Joel, I have a
Yes.
question for you. I mean, I don't want to seem too cynical here, but do you think that Gaetz and maybe even RFK Jr. were put up by Trump in order to get everybody talking and splashy, and all along there was going to be either by their own volition or by him pulling the nomination, making room for whom he really wants in those positions, like a Bondi? I mean, after all, she'll probably sail through with confirmation.
That implies
In comparison, everybody else is going to look better. As awful as and incompetent they are, they won't be as awful and incompetent as Gaetz was. So absolutely, I think this, this is Trump. This is negotiation for Trump, isn't it? This is what he does. He's gonna put something extreme out there and get that extreme thing away and still get something extreme nonetheless. Nobody knows.
Was there any doubt that he was going to get something extreme no matter what? I mean,
no, none. But it was like, how far can I push how far can I go? Can I get this guy in? Is my power so enormous that I could even push the Senate?
Yeah.
I can cajole them, I can control them. And the answer is maybe not. But absolutely, it's the lesser of evils, and there really may not be a lesser of evils. It's just another pretty face. I think he's doing some casting. All these people, he's trying to get telegenic people is my guess, attractive people. It's like he's casting a show,
like Hegseth. But I mean, at least we've got a WWE person who's going to be normalizing bullying at the Department of Education. So, Allan,
and she's got a sex crime. No, she has one too.
Yeah.
She apparently Jim Jordaned at the WWE and allowed somebody to
ring boys,
abuse young boys.
Wow.
Right. So, I mean, Bondi's there's something horrible and creepy and sexual is gonna come out on Pam Bondi. That's how they work.
Yeah. I think, I mean, when you look at it, first of all, his blueprint is the Apprentice. He's basically putting together a new Apprentice show with all these celebrities who don't really have experience in what they're doing. I mean, look, Dennis Rodman wasn't a businessman. Rod Blagojevich wasn't like a businessman. He just brings in people that it's going to be fun. And he also, I mean, he's an expert at grabbing every news cycle. He knows how to get the attention of every single news cycle. He's an entertainer. And so he knows, Matt Gaetz is going to be an outrageous one. It's going to be controversial, but he goes, what the hell? I'm sure they had, Bondi or whatever, however you pronounce her name, as a backup right away, knowing there was a chance it wouldn't go through. But it's entertainment. I mean, look, it sucked up a week in the news, Matt Gaetz, and scared the shit out of people. And,
Well, along with
he was the first one out from the show.
So I really think that we can talk about Trump, but Trump is Trump. Everything Allan said is true. Everything that Nancy and Barb said they're just true. The real question becomes, will the Senate abdicate its obligation for advice and consent? We know the Democrats won't. So that'll take 4 senators from the Republicans to say, we're really going to look at these nominees. We saw what happened with the Supreme Court with Brett Kavanaugh and stuff like that. The real question is, are they going to abdicate their obligation in the Constitution?
Yes.
And if they do, it won't make any difference. There's some evidence that they won't, that they might not when it comes to a Gaetz. But, I think that it's critical that they all stand up and really examine these people and look at some of these nominations. They're outrageous.
So Bill, outrageous. I mean, point taken, but with the exception of Abe Fortas, that was a pretty fraught nomination for Supreme Court back in the early 70s. The Senate pretty much used to apply its advice and consent provision of the Constitution by deferring to the White House when it came to nominees. Really, that changed, I would argue, in '87 when it came to Robert Bork. And then, of course, we see a series of those happening, especially with Clarence Thomas and others. But by and large, the whole idea of confirmation of presidential nominees would sail through. And are we then, when you're talking about, just for the sake of argument, the commitment of senators to the Constitution, is it what's in the 4 corners of the document, or what had been the practice of allowing and giving deference to the president?
But we're outside the boundaries of the practice already. I mean, there's a long history of edgy issues that have come up in terms of advice and consent. But here we're talking about nominating people who want to destroy the organization which they're put in charge of. There's not much of a history of that in this country. We've never really appointed somebody to head the Justice Department who says, I want to get rid of the FBI.
Correct.
I want to advocate for the Justice Department being an arm of the president. So we're in our uncharted territory. And one of the things that I hope, and maybe I should have my bunny ears on with this, is that the Senate people in the Senate will realize if we give this up, the Senate's going to become irrelevant.
Which is going to be
right. But Bill, to your point, you're right. If you listen to Trump during the whole time he campaigned, he's kind of said those things where he want to do an overhaul, get rid of certain institutions. So he's kind of following his path. I'm surprised the two names I'm waiting to hear who really stood by him was Tim Scott and Herschel Walker. I'm trying to see what appointments they may get or not.
I don't know how to tell you this, Beverly, but the color of their skin probably indicates that they aren't going to get anywhere in terms of a cabinet.
No way, Bill. No. They ain't so.
Just in terms of that historical perspective, all of those nominees before were establishment nominees. They were well known. They were accepted by the parties. You knew who you were going to get. They had probably written law review articles, if they were attorney general, Supreme Court. You knew who they were. And, you knew what their philosophy was and was relatively consistent. These guys don't have a philosophy. They have a loyalty. They have fealty. It's a completely different set of nominees, and there should be no more deference because we don't know who the fuck these people. What we do know of them is awful. So I don't think there should be the deference that historically has been given because these are not the conventional, expected, governmental experienced people that usually come in for these roles.
Go ahead, Alan. Yeah.
I was going to say real quick, I think it's interesting, Betsy DeVos, who wrote a letter on January 7th, 2021 to Trump saying how disgusted she was with the riot at the Capitol, and his rhetoric just fueled it and all that. And then suddenly during the campaign, she's at all these meetings with wealthy donors. And then she said she was interested in getting her job back, which the one thing that I think Mitt Romney learned is you can trash Trump, but you don't get your job back or a job once you do that,
Well, I think, Alan, that she may have a shot because Trump wants her to wrestle Paula McMahon for the role in a pay-per-view.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone got inspired by the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight because anything now is possible. But of course, Trump also
have a video for that.
Oh, okay.
President Biden today celebrated his 82nd birthday, and he marked the occasion the way many older men do, by fighting Jake Paul.
There you go.
I couldn't watch, and not just because it was.
Buns.
I'm sorry, I couldn't watch not just because the screen kept.
The
freezing.
Netflix kept going freezing. Well, the better fight was the one right before that, which was between the two women. But it seemed a little bit rigged because I think Ms. Navarro looked like she clearly had the fight, but it went for the other person.
The Walter
Championship. Are you telling me that these fights are on the up and up? What? What?
Her eyes sure look like it.
The eyes tell it all. Well, not to be outdone with Linda, not Paula McMahon, sorry, as nominee for Secretary of Education. The president-elect has named Dr. Mehmet Oz to run Medicare and Medicaid. So someone who
is a real job. That is a real complicated job. And it's not one where you can shove everything onto your deputy and just come out and do the press conferences. It's like that requires some brains some knowledge, I should say, of Medicare and Medicaid, which is probably the densest and most difficult. Anybody who's had to deal with Medicare or Medicaid knows this. But they, it's like, hey, he's a doctor. He's a quack. He's on Oprah. Oprah Winfrey, when she dies and meets St. Peter,
that's our Schmuck of the week. You're killing me here.
She
Killing
is
me.
going to have a lot of shit to atone for. I'm Dr.
Dr.
Oz,
Phil.
Dr. Phil,
Right.
you know, any number of people. I mean, I don't care if she's a billionaire
Stedman
and
being
she
a
hangs with
kept
the
man.
Obamas. It's like she did a lot of damage in her career.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nancy, Stedman being a kept man, I think he might have a grievance or two. So
In the pool house.
in the poorhouse. Well, I mean, if you take a look at what Trump is clearly claiming, is that he has a mandate, and certainly he has the reinforcement of the House and the Senate and arguably the Supreme Court on his side. But it looks like the popular vote is actually going down. The recent data shows that Trump actually finished with less than 50% of the popular vote. Now, I know, of course, that's not going to matter because this was the fairest election in all of history, going back to the age of Pericles. But the fact that he has those kinds of numbers with a Democratic Party that still seems shell-shocked, is that going to be seen as at least some silver lining on which they can regroup,
No.
mobilize? Okay.
I feel like this today is simple answers to needlessly complicated questions. Like,
what are you
when Bill
saying
says,
about my question?
Will the Senate stand up to Trump? No, they're not going to do that, Bill. And no, it isn't going to. It's not something that we can rebuild on. I mean, I think the hardest thing in the next 4 years is going to get people to care again. I mean, I find myself avoiding. I haven't read an analysis of the election for days and days now because I just don't care. And I feel like we're on a roller coaster, a really badly maintained wooden roller coaster where there are termite, piles of termite shit underneath it, and the car is going up the hill and springs and things are falling off of it, and we haven't even really started the ride yet, and it's just
right. The administration hasn't even started yet. It's already a shit show.
Exactly. So I mean, I don't know. I don't see. I feel like we have to see what the future looks like before we can come up with a strategy.
Sometimes I think you have to give people what they wanted. Obviously, the majority of the folks wanted him. And sometimes, I hate to say crash and burn, but you got to give them at least a midterm. And you just got to just sit back now because there's nothing you can do. I definitely think the Democrats need to be starting to come out of shell shock and do some kind of
when will that
thinking or whatever. But I mean, now you can't do anything. You're just hoping for midterms. You got to let it somewhat crash and burn, see what he does, and hopefully.
I honestly don't know if I agree with that, and maybe because I just can't, and I don't think that a majority of the people did it. A scant half of people that bothered leaving their house and voted for him, and the rest of them were all going, it's not going to make a big difference. Well, it's going to start making a big difference very soon. And I don't think I think that there is strategy going on. It's just not coming from the Democratic Party, and I don't think it ever will. And that's why I refuse to join that band of thieves. And there's other things to be done, and I think that the question is what that is going to be. I see the labor movement beginning to gear up because they're under crosshairs. I think, I think that all over the, people that are not the elected people, but the people working at the national parks is gathering their strength because they know that they've got crosshairs on. I mean, it's going to be, I don't think it's going to take very long before, and I'm not waiting for the midterms to see people become destitute when they get a common cold. It's bad enough as it is.
Yeah.
I've got a little analogy for the Democratic Party. My father probably subscribed to U.S. News and World Report for probably 35, 38 years. And he just liked it because it was just meat and potatoes. There was like intelligence in there. There was not Michael Jackson stories and all that.
No dessert in the U.S. News and World Report for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And then James Fallow took over, and he decided he wanted to redo it and reach out to new people. And so he started doing more essays and stuff like that. Well, they lost the base. My father said, screw it. If I'm going to get this stuff, I'll get Time Magazine. They do that better than they're doing it now. And so they lost all the old subscribers and they didn't get new subscribers. And I think the Democratic Party has been trying to find ways to be more relevant and more modern and stuff like that. And at the same time, they're losing their base.
But you know, I keep hearing these anecdotes, and I understand anecdotes are not data, but I hear these stories about people saying, wait, the Affordable Care Act is Obamacare? You know, I like the Affordable Care Act. It's Obamacare I don't like. And, you know, and you think, how is it possible to not know this stuff? And, you know, I feel like we almost need to start back in middle school with civics classes or media literacy. I mean, there's a guy that I read his Substack, and he said he used to try to teach media literacy as kind of a subunit when he was a substitute teacher. And he's like, do you understand what these words actually mean? These like waffle words that are put into, you know, into stories that say seems like or suggests or something like. It's like people need to know how to read a news story and analyze and then ask themselves, does this sound like it's actually based on facts, or is it slanted somehow? You know.
No, Nancy, you're absolutely right, because people listen to sound bites, but I think with that affordable health care and Obamacare, they just stopped right at the word Obama. And
right. Yeah, I think that's probably true too. Yeah.
Right. It was just
there was no major correction from the press on that.
So yeah, I mean, that's a question I had regarding the etymology. I mean, I can't remember who actually really started to call it that. Was it the media, or was it Rush Limbaugh, or
the Republicans?
I think it was the Republicans. Yeah,
but they, without much correction, there's a movement right now to teach civics classes in libraries. And I think it's a great thing. And I think if you can get people to go in there and get them young, because we've got to. We have no time to waste. Anything left if there's a library left.
I have another analogy here is that, you know, what's the Untouchable movie with Sean Connery and De Niro and stuff? And at some point,
The Untouchables.
The Untouchables. And Sean Connery says to Ness, he says, you know, they bring a knife to, you know, you bring a gun. They put one of yours in the hospital. You put one of theirs in the morgue. That's how the Republicans play. They take it up. They're always willing to be more dirty. As you saw Elon Musk, where there were flyers going out to Muslims in Michigan saying, isn't it great? Kamala Harris is married to a Jew and she loves Israel. Sending things to Jewish people saying, oh my God, they're going to cut off Israel. Sending things to middle-class white people in the Midwest saying they're going to take away your jobs, you know, through this and that programs and stuff like that. And so I think the Democrats, besides, you know, maybe messaging, they've got to play dirty. They've got to be as dirty. They're in a knife fight with these guys, and they understand it, and we don't. And
they're arguing for Queensberry rules. Yeah, right. And these guys are beating you below or hitting you below the belt. To answer Ann's question, how do you explain all the people who are well-educated, politically astute? They're greedy and they're bad people. Again. A simple answer to a needlessly complicated question. They're assholes.
No, Alan, your point is a point that I debate with my son all the time. He takes your position, Alan. And unfortunately, I see the result of that as throwing democracy out.
Yeah.
Because democracy cannot, the representative democracy that we have can't prevail if that's the attitude we all have.
Well, look what we have now. Are we going to have
Alan, I'm struggling with the issue. You know me. I'm not suggesting that you're obviously wrong. I'm saying, is it time that we give it up? But if we give it up, then the ballot box is not where we fight. It's every place else.
So
that leads to best examples that are pretty scary.
Yeah.
But the best example in almost everybody, I'm not sure how old you are, Beverly, but in the civil rights movement, what they did down south in the face of all of these things, physical violence, spreading disinformation, scaring the shit out of people had freedom schools. And they taught people about voting, and they had the living shit kicked out of them, and they kept on and they kept on. And I think that hopefully it won't come to that, but I think that just accepting it and waiting for things to get worse before they can get better is just not necessarily And I'm not calling for violence or anything like that. I'm not talking about bringing a baseball bat to, any of these things. But I think that there's a lot that can be done if we can sweep ourselves into a fucking pile. And
give me until
I don't think that we should be back and say that. I think on a local level, because I know that we have been in the last couple of weeks, we continue to go on and help our communities and have that spread out and educate and regroup. Right. So it's not sitting back waiting for midterms, but at the same time, you're looking at what you can do right now. I mean, right now, you just need to regroup, and then on the local level, and everybody needs to, get that message and do that education like we were saying, and then regroup. And then exactly, when you can start seeing some things, because sometimes, just sometimes, when people don't realize that they're drinking the Kool-Aid, as you would say, and sometimes when they get that and they see that, this will kind of, help them have a different position, those who are just following, that cult leadership, I'd like to say. That's just my opinion. But I don't think we need to sit back. I think definitely everybody needs to be working in their groups and working together, and we won't be sitting back waiting to midterms. But that would be
what's going to happen?
Implemented yet.
What's going to happen when day one they start? There are trains coming and buses coming for migrants, for maybe even American citizens that were born here. Who's going to stand in front of those? That's really the issue. There's got to be some passive resist. I mean, this is Gandhi time, Martin Luther King time. There has to be a movement of passive resistance, of civil disobedience. Right. Now we're fighting just to survive with civil rights. We're just trying to survive. And there's going to be real concrete action, according to Trump and the guys that he's appointed. And when those trains come, the police come, if the military and domestically are going to be used. Yeah. He's going to use the military domestically to move people. What are we going to do? Am I going to sit in front of a tank like that kid in Tiananmen Square? Probably not. But what the hell are we going to do?
I know it's true, and they're going to, and they've already promised
all of this.
They've already promised that he wants to use the military against the people standing in front of the
that's
train.
the whole point.
Yeah,
a movement where wait a sec, this cannot be done. This is this is fascism. Once you get the military domestic policy, it's over. We're done.
Literally a police state at that point.
So we have to.
And by the way, I know it's unfair to pick on somebody who's not here to defend themselves, but I remember last week Jason Rowe, who generally speaking was a very nice guest and a nice contrarian against our, wall of our blue wall of liberal, squishy opinions. But he said, why are you calling us Nazis? Okay. The very next day, Nazis marched in my hometown of Columbus, Ohio. Yeah. I mean, it's the same MO every time. It's like 12 dudes with like masks on their faces, but they were all carrying flags with a swastika on it. Fortunately, they were arrested and the police yanked their masks off so they could at least be photographed by people who were there with cameras. And
chanting the end.
But my question is,
they were chanting.
Who do you think those guys voted for? I mean, did those guys vote for Harris? I mean, were they marching because they were so upset? No, those guys were Trumpers. So there.
I really want to say that I agree with Joel that the test is going to come fairly quickly. When with this mass deportation issue, the issue becomes: are we going to protect people who are going to get sucked up in this, or are we not? Are we going to hide them? Are we going to try and do something? Are we going to stand in front of these buses and try to stop these troops? I think that's going to be one of the answers. I also think that there's just a shitload of unintended consequences that are going to happen. So Trump's talking about getting rid of birthright citizenship. For those who don't know,
that's a constitutional thing. That's going to be really hard to do.
Well, it was determined by the Supreme
Court. He's going to change the Constitution. Remember, Nancy.
Well, it was but the 14th Amendment has never been interpreted.
It's not written in the Constitution. It's a Supreme Court decision.
Oh, okay.
That determined that if you're born of a United States citizen, no matter where you are a United States citizen.
And if you're born in the United States,
make it retroactive. Think about this. I have a brother, Allan knows him, who happened to be the director of transnational crimes, which is terrorism, in the Justice Department for 4 years. He would fit that category. He potentially He's 78 years old. He potentially would lose his citizenship under this and be subject to deportation. He was born in Haifa, Palestine. Where's he going to go?
Right.
Yeah. Why don't we take a quick commercial, Alan?
Okay, I wanted to say something real quick.
Yep.
I remember in 2004 when Kerry lost, and I was at the Washington Post, and one of my podmates said to me, he said, "You know what? Maybe the Democrats need to like be a little bit more accommodating and maybe be anti-abortion and all that stuff." And I said to him, I said, "What's the point of having two different parties if the Democrats don't stand for what they want to stand for?" And Howard Dean, to his credit, I think, did an amazing job of doubling down and saying, this is the Democratic Party. This is what we stand for. Ronald Reagan had said there's no room in our party for, bigots and racists and stuff like that. Trump is never going to say that because Trump is like the big tent. It's a big tent that doesn't include
all the bigots can come in.
Right.
Anti-Semites, racists, don't like fat people. Come on in,
Yeah. Anyways, all right.
Let's go to a commercial, Alan.
I love teaching others because when I first got into the healthcare field, people overlooked me. I was really a ninth grade dropout who had no education, but I was determined to make something of myself for my baby. So Motor City matched the funds I put into my business. They awarded me $20,000. So now I'm able to focus solely on first step healthcare training and give it everything it needs. All because I live in Detroit.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Well, it looks like in the last few weeks of the Biden administration, the president has ramped things up on the issue of Ukraine. Biden not only sent American missiles to Kyiv, but allowed or lifted the ban on Ukraine being able to fire them into Russia, which the Ukrainians did right away. And what we find is that both the rhetoric as well as the actions by Vladimir Putin in Russia have in fact intensified. He has said that he has reconsidered the nuclear threshold that would be required for Moscow to then strike the Ukraine with tactical nuclear weapons at the least, and has also fired an intercontinental ballistic missile with conventional weapons just to show that they could reach and they could be redeployed with a nuclear tip warhead. Yeah. Why now and why?
I think, one of the reasons is that, they think there's going to be negotiations for some peace agreement and Russia's trying to get the upper hand. And so at this point, Biden's like, fuck that. We're not going to, let them have the upper hand like that. So I think that's simple. The Nancy explanation.
but don't you think that by escalating it, any kind of negotiation will invariably happen after January? And if they do happen, then Trump may claim credit for an even bigger de-escalation, saying, look, this was tantamount to the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I was able to negotiate the deal.
I think they can't worry about it at this point. The Biden administration can't worry if Trump's going to take credit for whatever they're doing to try to set the plate. They just have to do the right thing or try to do the right thing, So
okay. Well, on another front, the International Criminal Court did, in fact, issue arrest warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu, former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, and a Hamas official on the perspective of war crimes having been committed over the last 14 months in Israel and Palestine. The Biden administration came out quite emphatically saying that it does not recognize these particular charges. And interestingly, they were welcomed by Hamas, that also encouraged more indictments to come out. The Israeli government was quite emphatic as well. Prime Minister Netanyahu said this was anti-Semitic, and in fact compared the indictments to the Dreyfus trial, which occurred in 1894, dealing with a French captain in the French Legion of Jewish extract who was wrongfully accused of treason by giving documents to the Germans after the Franco-Prussian War. What does this then mean for the American posture regarding international law and international institutions?
It means that we cannot have a summit in Amsterdam, for sure. So,
Okay.
It means that
Or Dearborn.
Or Dearborn, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. The Dearborn mayor has vowed to arrest Netanyahu if he comes there. I don't think that's on his agenda. Itinerary.
I don't know. You know, the food there, man, Alan. I mean, it's happening.
Have you been to El Tayeb? It's fantastic. Right?
Yeah.
Although I think they've got some pretty good places there in the Middle East as well.
So what we have is Prime Minister Justin Trudeau from Canada, and of course the Dutch, who have said that we will be bound by our international obligations, that were any of these three individuals to set foot in their respective countries, that they will go ahead and arrest them, prosecute them, and then turn them over to The Hague for prosecution there. What does it then say again about the United States and its posture, Joel?
Yeah, that we choose laws at our convenience that we want to follow. We're a superpower. You know, we're the 300-pound gorilla in the room. We're going to do whatever the hell we want. We'll disavow what's inconvenient, and we'll embrace what is convenient. This is how countries of our magnitude, I guess, or with power, even those without power, act. You know, we're going to do what we want to do. We're not going to let
the shame is that they would arrest Hamas.
Get in the way. When we have let that happen, how many people have we get? I mean, come on, we're not going to let that get in the way.
The shame is they would arrest the Hamas representative if he showed up in this country, but they won't do anything to Bibi or Gallant.
Right, and I understand in Israel, you know, it's a rallying cry now. You know, for Israelis, at least. You know, I read the Israeli Times, I believe. You know, I took a look, and there seemed. Thank you. The Times of Israel. There seems to be a lot of enthusiasm for Bibi. It works to his benefit. He's going to be on trial in a month. You know, all these things work to his benefit in some ways.
Well, he's a criminal. Period. I mean, there's
absolutely
how he survived is. I mean, we know how he survived with war here. I mean, he should have. And it's funny. Gallant was also included in that indictment. I think there was one Hamas guy.
Who might already have been killed by the Israelis back in July. So
and so I'll say the one thing for Gallant has really pushed for negotiations and like in July he said we were done. It was ripe for an agreement, and Netanyahu has sabotaged it. So I mean. He's just a horrible human being, and him and Trump are two peas in a pod. He's a little smarter than Trump, and we'll see how he manipulates Trump during this administration.
I think he's actually a lot smarter than Trump.
Yeah.
I think what was also telling today, it was reported that former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert was categorical in saying that not only were the warrants warranted, but in fact that at least Netanyahu, if not Gallant, are guilty of the allegations that have been filed against them. So it seems as though there's perhaps even more, albeit because of political reasons as well, debate in Israel than there is from the U.S. government on this issue. So I guess something to stay tuned. Closer to home, we have a couple of medical issues to see. Detroit Receiving Hospital and Sinai-Grace both received failing grades for patient safety. And not related necessarily to that are the fact that Corewell nurses have voted to unionize and have joined the Teamsters. So, Barb, you are, Alan, sorry, you got your hand.
Well, I just want to say real quickly, Sinai-Grace has been a horrible hospital. If you talk to people who have gone there, the care there is horrible. And they got by this watchdog organization, this nonprofit, they got an F for patient safety on a number of issues there. It's basically the hospital for the poor besides Detroit Receiving. And it's basically tells you the inequities that, I mean, if you go out to even Henry Ford on West Grand Boulevard, where I'm going to have my surgery, is really a first-rate hospital. And so is Henry Ford out in West Bloomfield. And, Corewell is, still going through its issues, trying to figure out how good a care it really wants to provide, as opposed to how much money the CEO and the COO and all those people want to make. But the unionization of the nurses is great.
Yeah.
I think there's been proof that, University of Michigan, the nurses are unionized, and there's considered top-notch care there. And I think we'll see an improvement in care at Corewell if the nurses.
As I recall, Sinai-Grace was a nuclear hotspot during COVID, early COVID.
Yes.
And I think that was because, first of all, I think somebody pointed out there's something like 14 or 18 Medicaid nursing homes that are all around there that
Right.
would logically be accepting patients from there. And, it's a poor person's hospital. And unfortunately, that's not it kills me because hospitals that are not for poor people, like Henry Ford, like St. John, they do fine. They do fine. And the money that's paid to some of these executives is just outrageous. There was a huge project in The Guardian about Parkview Hospital in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I used to live. And they were talking about, the rates that they charge, the aggressive way they go after collections for people who can't pay, and their executives who are all just, rolling in dough. And it's just, something is so wrong with American healthcare, but
Right.
I don't know if it's even fixable at this point.
And Nancy, that's what's disturbing to me the most. And any hospital will get a failing grade, and then the two that's getting the F is in Detroit, where the people
Right.
would perceive it to be, people of color and people of not of wealth.
Right.
So that's disturbing. And you're right, Sinai was in the early stages of COVID, because remember, it was the workers inside coming out saying how the unfortunate transitional bodies were still and how they were kept.
Right.
So,
they were keeping them in like spare rooms, sitting in
Exactly.
chairs. It was.
And I'm so proud that the nurses joined the union and much
Yeah.
more. And you will continue to have that, because you're having now, and Barb and everyone would know this, you're having people who have no idea how to run these facilities.
Mhm.
No idea. You don't have health professionals, healthcare people who understand it. Similarly, what they're having the issue in Corewell now with their leadership. And so you're going to continue to see these problems. And I hope that most of the entities there protect their rights, would all of them join the union.
Yeah.
But, DMC is a for-profit. It's part of a bigger company there. And the problem is, even the nonprofits like Corewell and some of the other, like Corewell became under Beaumont with John Fox, the CEO. He was trying to build up the surplus. The surplus was $2.5 billion before the pandemic. Then it was after, I think it was $3.5 billion. He was laying off nurses during the pandemic when a nonprofit with a huge surplus. And the reason being that he was going to get a $10 million bonus once he put a merger together and he left.
And he did get it.
The fatter the surplus
Right.
was more attractive to some of these other companies. And, and it's
Thank
a
you,
nonprofit.
Eric
His
Starkman.
salary just kept rising.
Right.
It's crazy because John Fox privatized the anesthesiologist, which you would think was one of the first ones that you wanted really, really trained professionals with a history of this.
They killed the guy.
The vote on this was overwhelming.
Yeah.
And if like one of my sisters just came through lung cancer at Corewell, and she got good care. She really got good care. But if you talk to the nurses, which I did, and take them aside and talk to them a little bit, they were like this.
Mhm.
And I have friends that retired from there that said they would go to a veterinary hospital before they had anything done.
Oh,
At Corewell. And they weren't kidding. They made it through. They made it through. My one friend made it through the plague, and he retired. And he's like never set foot in that place again. And that's a giant campus, and they're building on it. For what? I have, if they're not going to take care of patients, what is it for?
Right.
But I'm happy for it. Was, like I say, it was a very overwhelming vote. It was all of the RNs.
Good.
And that's a big deal. And the organizing drive hasn't stopped. So there's going to be more and more. So
wasn't Grace Hospital where Harry Houdini died? I have a feeling that was. I think
you are just a walking encyclopedia, Saeed.
I think you're right.
You know everything. You know Pam Bondi's name has a long I on the end, and you know where Harry Houdini died. So there you go.
I saw the Tony Curtis movie for the latter, not the former.
I had an editor who had a big scar on his jawline, and I said, "Wow, that's like a big scar on your jawline. How'd you get that?" He said, "I don't know, some random thing, and my father couldn't afford to take me to the doctor, so he took me to a veterinarian." So
wow.
That's how, they don't prize like plastic surgery, like surgical closures in veterinary school.
Like I say, my friend wasn't kidding either. So
I was born at Grace, and then they merged at Sinai-Grace. Sinai used to be the premier hospital in Detroit. I mean, the best doctors. It was really just such an outstanding hospital, and it just deteriorated.
Well, actually, I believe, Allan, I think we understand that you were born in a state of grace. So,
nice.
Hey, come on, he's in a lazy boy. We gotta, and he's gonna have surgery.
Even Christians don't believe that. So,
what goes around? All right, let's go to our last segment.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
Well, there is no dearth of them this week. Beverly, who do you have for us?
Well, I have several people, but all for the same category. Basically, all of the nominees that Trump has put forth, all the way from Hucklebees, Dr. Oz, and Santa Claus, for not putting country before self. And that's it. Those are my schmucks of the week.
Okay, Joel.
I'm going to go with one, Oprah Winfrey. That was my choice. I'm upset with Nancy for
sorry,
but Spawn is like disgusting. Not Oz again. Dr. Phil. The fact that Oz is going to be head of anything is terrifying.
Yeah.
He's a complete charlatan from what I can see. Again, what he peddles, this is absurd.
Joel, aren't you interested in those new miracle weight loss pills that he's
Who is it?
Oh, yeah, green coffee extract, I believe.
But I could use more energy because I'm fatigued.
Yeah.
So in any event, he's one, but also Elon Musk for messing with our house, man. I mean, he has no business doing what he's doing here. He has no business being involved in politics here, and he knows no rules. Again, the saying of when they go low, we go high. No, when they go low, we should gotta go lower.
Yeah.
It's time, man. It just gotta take off the gloves. We gotta go.
We gotta stop being so nice.
Correct. Being polite and being sensitive doesn't get you any place, and that's what we learned. So, but Elon Musk and of course Oprah, who I cannot stand.
Actually, I'm not sure about him being a charlatan. I know he's Turkish, and those aren't necessarily the same thing, Joel. So, have to maintain the distinction. So
I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay. All right. Barb.
I don't know how we were even going to do this anymore because they're just the schmucks are just, it's like a sewer pipe opened and out they all come. But speaking of sewer pipes, then my choice is Matthew Whitaker, who at one point was Trump's acting attorney general and who was also famous for trying to sell a masculine toilet for men who were, how am I going to put this? Men who were like Arnold Palmer, who needed a little bit more room.
That water's a little cold.
Bill, all you can do is shake your head.
I'm sorry, Bill. He's going to have a permanent mark on his head. It was a scam. Long story short, it ended up being a scam. But he is being floated out for the head of NATO.
Ambassador to NATO.
Ambassador to NATO. So that's right in line with the there's a concentration of attention on a certain part of all of our bodies by the Trump administration.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
And you look at that guy,
you know, I mean,
with
like
that bullet head of his, and you just know that he does not need the masculine toilet. I'm sorry.
see, Barb, when you said an Arnold Palmer toilet, I thought you only use that if you've had, lemonade and iced tea.
Don't destroy the drink for me. Such a delicious, refreshing drink.
Bill.
It's an easy one for me this week. It's to all the members in the House and Senate who refuse to do their duty and to be a check and balance against Donald Trump. It's in the Constitution. It's clear. And you get members who can't wait to get in front of the microphones to tell Trump, we don't give a shit what you do. We're going to approve it. And they're destroying this country. Maybe have already destroyed it.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Nancy.
Well, I had Matt Whitaker, but since we've already gone over the masculine toilet, I'm going to fall back on somebody that I've taken to the Schmuck woodshed too many times, but he just keeps on delivering, and that's of course RFK Jr., who is, everything I learned about this guy is more alarming than the last thing I learned about this guy. And of course, I think everybody saw the photograph that Don Jr. tweeted last week of him, Don Jr., Don Sr., Elon, and RFK sitting down at a table on Trump's plane.
Air Force One. Yep.
No, not Air Force One.
Right.
It's a Trump Force One. Yeah, we can all hope that it might crash. Anyway.
It's a Boeing.
Yeah, it is. They're all eating McDonald's, and RFK has that look on his face. I think the funniest comment that I saw, this is like when the narc joins the gang and they make him all do drugs to show that he's not a cop.
So do you think it was a bear or a whale Happy Meal that he was eating? By the way,
for him.
Yeah.
Well, Barb and Nancy, I mean, I think, both of you, invoking Whitaker, it makes me think that if I ever go to a housewarming, if somebody's got a starter home, I'm going to invoke my inner Luca Brasi and say, may your first toilet be a masculine toilet.
I have a question here. When we see all the McDonald's and stuff, are we going to see a lot more product placement in this administration?
Oh, I'm sure.
Photo opportunities.
Yeah,
hey, let's get
money.
Subway. Subway's going to pay us something.
As of just a few days ago, Trump was pimping something called the Trump guitar, the 45 guitar.
No, come on.
Yes.
I'm not kidding. I actually made a
$10,000 for an
sticker
autograph
of it on my phone so that I can harass my friends with it, because I can punch it into text messages. And it's all the airbrush bullshit, and then the neck says "Make America Great Again."
Right.
And it has a wonderful timber. So
yeah, it really is.
It has sort of a
there you go.
like the side of a van. It's
exactly.
A wolf and a bull.
The shameless administration.
It doesn't have wood. It doesn't have wood paneling like a '78 station wagon. Okay.
Woody.
There you go.
Don't
Allan.
be Woody when we're talking about this, please.
I understood what I was doing.
I'm going to say Lindsey Graham, who continues, who is once again saying, let's give Matt Gaetz a chance and stuff like that. The guy, there's no limit to his shame. Yeah, there's no limit to his shame. I mean, in 2016, he attacked Trump as basically calling him a piece of shit. Then after January 6th, he said, well, I'm out. That's it. And then before you know it, he's down at Mar-a-Lago and stuff like that. I mean, it's just, there's just no dignity. I mean, I can't imagine a job that I would have that would demand all my dignity be held in an escrow account or something. You know,
you can't hold something in an escrow account that doesn't exist.
Right, not existent.
a double on.
We need Peter Coyote narrating here, going. In actuality, he was not out.
Well, a double on Graham for also threatening to pass legislation placing sanctions on countries that will abide by the ICC regulation to arrest Netanyahu if he visits there. So Canada and the Netherlands, you've been warned. Well, my schmuck of the week is Boston University for making a decision to cut dozens of PhD programs for the 25-26 calendar year, claiming that there just isn't enough money for stipends and for the grad student salaries and all, blaming it all on a 7 month long graduate workers strike, which then led to a union contract. This is probably more evidence of the fact that Boston University just simply has contempt for non-STEM subjects, but on the chopping block include American studies, anthropology, history, religion, philosophy, political science, art and architecture, linguistics, romance studies, and sociology. Oh, also, given that it is such a lucrative area of study, but still necessary, New England studies as well. So Boston University for this action in curtailing higher education, which is necessary for us as a country. You're my schmuck of the week. Well, thank you again for a terrific conversation about really going around the world in 80 minutes or less. Thank you, Beverly Watts. Thank you, Barb Ingalls. Thank you, Joel Sklar. Thank you, Bill Seikaly. Thank you, Nancy Derringer. And thank you, and with the last word, and good surgery, good recovery, Allan Lengel.
Thank you. Besides, walk safely, drive home safely.
All right. Have a great weekend. Have a great